Welcome to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast, where you can learn and be inspired by real-world examples of how technology is transforming businesses and reshaping industries in a language everyone can understand. Here is your host, Neil C. Hughes.
Welcome back to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast. How are you all doing out there, gang? I've got quite a treat for you all today, as I've invited Chase Cunningham from Ericom, and he's going to be joining me on the podcast to reveal more about ZTEdge, which I believe is an all-in-one zero trust cloud security platform designed specifically for the mid-size enterprises, a market that is often underserved and yet, let's be honest, highly vulnerable to cyber attacks. So I wanted to learn more about how it reduces cyber risk, cuts complexity, improves performance, all those big areas that businesses are focusing on now and trying to make sense of, especially in a world where we're working from anywhere and on any device. I think identifying users and authenticating devices, connecting the right people and devices to the right apps and resources, all by using password-based or passwordless authorization and multi-factor authentication, represents a huge amount of challenges. But you know what? I've probably revealed too much already, haven't I? So buckle up and hold on tight as I beam your ears all the way to the US, where Chase Cunningham is waiting to speak with us. So a massive warm welcome to the show, Chase. Can you tell the listeners a little about who you are and what you do?
Sure. So I am the Chief Strategy Officer at Ericom Software. Retired Navy, did a bunch of work for the government after that. I was a Forrester analyst for a number of years, and now I'm over here trying to strategize and execute.
Fantastic. And before you came on the podcast, my research taught me that you were also the recipient of Security Magazine's Most Influential People in Security and joined Ericom as its Chief Strategy Officer earlier this year. But I've got to ask, where did it all begin? Can you share your origin story and where your love of technology and security began?
Oh man, it goes way back to honestly all the way to high school. I was the token nerd. I grew up in a little bitty nowhere town, and I actually could set up the computer lab when I was 16. So that was kind of my first intro into computers, which wasn't a very deep one, but it was something. And then I did a bunch of work in the U.S. Navy and the cryptologic services around cybersecurity, which continued to kind of grow my love and engagement of the space. And then I was lucky enough to continue to work in that arena for the U.S. government when I retired. So I've just been super blessed to be exposed to some of the most high-speed technology pieces that the U.S. government can offer. And then on the far side, I got to go and work in the commercial space. So I just can't think of a better place to be in technology personally.
Cool. And that path, of course, led you to Ericom. So I've got to ask, what is it you love most about your role there?
Well, I think the great thing about being in a strategy position is you're still in a spot where your job is to basically look at the market in general and then try and vector your specific company's offerings and execution into where the market needs are. It's not an easy thing just because there's so much moving target space going on in cybersecurity, but it's also super interesting because you're able to kind of figure out where there's an opportunity, and then you have to also work to decide how to technically execute business execution. So it's never a dull moment. It's never the same thing twice.
And one of the reasons I invited you on the podcast today was to talk about ZTEdge, which I believe is an all-in-one zero trust cloud security platform designed specifically for the mid-size enterprise, a market underserved and yet highly vulnerable to cyber attacks. So for people that are hearing about it for the first time, can you set the scene and tell the listeners what it is and what makes it different from other solutions out there?
Sure. So what we've done is we've basically looked at I created a framework called the Zero Trust Extended Framework, and there's 7 components in there, pillars, if you will, that are the basic building blocks for a zero trust strategy. And what we did was we looked at the technology that was out there and we said, can we put this in the cloud and make it where it is super affordable and super usable for any business anywhere? And that's what we've done. The guys at Ericom were kind of working on some stuff around that before I came on, but when I came on, we really focused on executing specifically for the small and mid-sized enterprise. And the reason for that is we think that that's an underserved market. We also think that if we don't fix and help that group of businesses, we're not actually fixing anything in cybersecurity. And we're seeing that that's true. If you don't take care of everybody, you haven't actually helped fix anybody.
That's so true. And can you expand on how it identifies users and authenticates devices, connecting the right people and devices to the right apps and resources? Because, again, it's something that I think so many businesses are battling with right now. And just hearing how it all fits together and how it works in the workplace would really help a lot of people listening, I think.
Sure. So what we do is we're able to put a very, very, very lightweight agent on an endpoint, be it an iPhone, an Android phone, a Mac, a Windows box, or Linux machine, and essentially that agent works as an ability to send information out to our cloud, and in the cloud we're able to do all the orchestration. And when we do orchestration, we're actually saying that the way that the business should work is this user should use this device to get to this resource and nothing else should occur. And because of the way that we've architected things, we can do that. And what you get with that is if you approach it from that perspective, you eliminate all of the other things that would allow a compromise or a hack, if you want to call it that, to be as bad as it can be. And we think that there's 30, 40 years of history to show that this approach makes a heck of a lot of sense. And again, we focus extremely heavily on usability and price. I can say unequivocally, we go to small and mid-sized businesses and tell them all the time, I can give you all of the capability of a major vendor at half the price.
And I would imagine that for the most part, cybersecurity and resilience were always important in business, but maybe they were left on the back burner, or maybe the boardroom didn't always appreciate the value. But of course, all that is completely changed now. So do you have any use cases you could possibly share just to help any business leaders listening understand how it can reduce cyber risk, cut the complexity, improve performance, all at a price point dramatically lower than other offerings out there? Because this is the language everyone's speaking now, isn't it? Everyone's after that, but obviously they've also got to do more with less.
Yeah, and that's been a key focus area for us, is really to say, like, look, everybody everywhere, and we have the media coverage now to sort of prove that everybody everywhere is a potential target. Everyone has something of value that is worth someone going after. So you don't have an excuse anymore as a small and mid-sized business not to focus on cybersecurity. It's a requirement. There are laws coming to pass that make this a thing. You have to do it. But where they run into the wall is that it's usually cost prohibitive for them to go off and buy some multi-million dollar infrastructure security capability. So we've basically focused on making it where that is doable at scale for them. And then lastly, we focused on making sure that the way that the system works is, it's not some crazy weird claim about artificial intelligence, whatever. We have a learning capability that lets the system figure out what's accurate and what's inaccurate, and then you apply controls. And that's as difficult as it needs to be. But you, as the business that uses that, get the benefit of getting better faster without all the heavy lift of doing it yourself. The system helps you figure it out.
And it's not only that the attacks are increasing, but they're also becoming much more sophisticated, especially around credential theft. So how does it handle SaaS application access control and combat that increasing credential theft risks that we're seeing more and more of lately?
So there's two ways that we do that. Number one, we can work with any current identity and access management platform that takes care of users and passwords and multi-factor authentication, those things. Or because, again, we believe that this is something that everyone needs, we've built a fully integrated identity and access management capability in the system itself, and we give that away. Like, that is, we don't charge extra for that because we think that it's that critical. So that's available. It's part of the system, and it's able to do things like one-time passwords, biometric authentication. You can even go no password if you want and use certificate exchange. So we spend a lot of time putting this stuff together and really looking at where there would be a reason for a business to say, I can't do that, I can't afford it, or that doesn't make sense to me. And we basically negated those arguments.
And I think another thing that's changed over the years is we've gone from a reactive approach to security when something goes wrong and everyone running around trying to put the fire out, to being more proactive and jumping on it before anybody calls in and says that there's a problem somewhere. So what about network protection and monitoring? Is that something that you focus on too?
Yeah, so because we're able to see the traffic that's bouncing around inside of the infrastructure, we do have the capability to let an organization see the packets and the data that's going on there. So we have packet capture capability, we have full network traffic analysis, and we've got an installed and built-in intrusion detection and intrusion prevention system. So all of that is built into the platform, and it's literally where an organization can just say, yes, I want that, and they turn it on. Or if they say, no, I've already got that from somewhere else, great, just use what you've already got.
And I think also now we've been on quite a journey over the last 12 months. We've gone from the argument of what is better, working from home versus remote working, to everybody remote working, to now learning that the balance is probably somewhere in between. And we're not only working from anywhere and any device and everywhere, but we're also heading towards a more hybrid approach to working. So can you tell me more about how it helps organizations to connect users and officers that are working from anywhere, but securely on any device? Because again, it's a huge challenge right now, isn't it?
Right, and that's where some of the architecture that's been put into the ZTEdge is really around the software-defined perimeter and the SASE ZTNA sort of side of this equation. We don't do VPNs. However, if you have one, you can continue to use it. But what we've sort of said is you should be able to be on any device, you should be able to be on any network, and you should be able to be in any locality and do your job. We're just going to make sure that the security controls are pushed out through the fabric of the internet and the cloud apparatus that we have to secure that enterprise based on that changing sort of dynamic protect space. And everyone at Ericom runs on this, and we have folks in New Jersey and Israel and the United States and overseas and other locations. So I mean, we live and breathe it. We eat our own dog food, drink our own champagne, however you want to call it. And it makes it where all you have to do is do your work. Security happens whether you kind of like it to or not.
Well, I've loved chatting with you about this today. But before I let you go, I always try and have a bit of fun with a guest. So we've started the podcast today talking about your origin story and how you got where you are. But a question I'd love to ask is there a particular song that's been the soundtrack to that career, or has inspired you in the past, or just helps you go get your head in the zone before going on stage to deliver a keynote or something? What would your song be and why? And we'll add it to our Spotify playlist.
Well, if you were to say, my just lifetime career, it would probably be that crazy song they play at like the circus, that doodle song. That would probably be it. But if you're saying what would be my entry music, I'm a big fan of Metallica. Like Through the Never is probably my favorite one.
Oh man, great choice. I was talking with a guest about Metallica the other day, someone from the music industry, and how they, if you've ever seen them live, when they come on to Ennio Morricone's Ecstasy for Gold, it just makes the hairs on your neck stand on end, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's good stuff. There's no way not to be motivated after listening to some of that.
No, absolutely. Well, before I let you go, for anyone that would like to find out information about anything we've talked about today, in particular ZTEdge or anything, or latest developments at Ericom, where's the best starting point for that?
Yeah, so we've got, of course, our website, which is zerotrustedge.com. You can always look me up on LinkedIn or Twitter. My Twitter handle's at CYNJACHASEC at Sinja Chasey. And other than that, we're constantly moving, and we'll be, growing in the market. So you're not going to be looking for us. We'll come find you.
Love that. Well, I'll add all those links to the show notes so people can find you nice and easily as well. Loved hearing about ZTEdge and all the problems that you're solving for businesses, and more than anything for you taking the time to share your story with me today. So thanks for joining me, Chase.
Hey, thanks for having me. It was great talking to you. I really appreciate you, being willing to chat with us.
On this topic of secure web and internet access, one of the things that we didn't talk about there was how ZTEdge is protecting users as they interact with the web and email by leveraging URL filtering, antitrust scanning, and anti-phishing protection, remote browser isolation, and much more. But the big takeaway, of course, is how they're simply providing a simple way to connect remote workers with private cloud or on-premise applications using zero trust access capabilities. Now, we did cover a lot of ground in a very short amount of time, but this is why I record this podcast every day. Have a quick chat with a leader in this space and then throw the microphone over to you, everyone listening. We are going to have security professionals listening. We're going to have business leaders, IT directors, and techie support teams. My plan is to get you all talking together, sharing your ideas, sharing your experiences. I'll be the bridge that will broadcast everything that you tell me. And hopefully we can all learn together and create new solutions. That is the cheesy dream behind this podcast. I was raised on idealistic 80s TV shows. That's my excuse. But please keep your messages coming in. techblogwriter@outlook.com, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, just @NeilCHughes. Nice and easy. And my website is techblogwriter.co.uk. And if you have listened to the podcast for the first time and you do enjoy what we're trying to create here in the community that we're building, please, I implore you to leave a quick rating or review on Apple Podcasts if that's where you listen, because it really does help in that battle against the algorithms that every podcaster faces every single day. But that's enough from me. I'm going to slip out the back door now. I'll return again tomorrow with another guest and we'll talk about how technology is transforming other industries and solving real problems. But a big thank you for listening. And until next time, don't be a stranger.
Thank you for listening to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast with Neil C. Hughes. Remember, technology works best when it brings people together.